AMW විකුණු පාන විතරක්ම වෙන්නේ නැති ගන්න.
ඕන වාහනයක් ගන්නවා.
පරණ වාහනයක්
ගන්නවා.
පාර්ට්ස් හැම හොයා ගන්න අමාරු කාර් එකක්
ගන්නවා.
සල්ලි ගන්න විකුණනකන් ඉන්න වෙන්නේ.
පැය 3ෙන් සල්ලි දෙනවා.
ලීසින් කරලා තිබුණොත්
ලීස් එක සෙටල් කරලා අපි ගන්නවා.
කොකටත් එක ෂුවර් කරගන්න හැබැයි.
අපෙන් නොගත්තත් අපි ගන්නවා.
May each drop of water that falls through rain to our earth not go to waste, not go back without being made use for the benefit of the people of this nation. What a wonderful thought and ideology by the architect of Sri Lankan water civilization. In fact, according to the Mahavamsa, at one point of time in ancient history, Sri Lanka was the greatest water civilization. And the words I just shared are from King Parakram Bahu. However, that was centuries ago. Today, how secure are we when it comes to our water supply? We are already worried as citizens about some of the shortages of various sources of energy. And what about water security? And not only that, at a time that the whole world is worried about water supply, is the water supply systems of Sri Lanka one that we can rely on? Globally, more than 700 million people are facing the issues of water scarcity. In fact, one might ask the question, can a city or country run out of water? Well, in 2018, Cape Town of South Africa was almost at that tipping point of running out of water. Amidst all these developments, how secure is our water supply? To talk about this, in your weekend's most profitable and insightful 60 minutes, we have a very special guest joining us who is none other than Mr. Thilina Wijetunga, who is the General Manager of the National Water Supply and Drainage Board. Mr. Wijetunga, absolute pleasure to welcome you to Bisnomics and happy to have you.
Thank you, Taridu, for inviting me for this show.
Mr. Thilina, I would like to get to the question that a lot of people are actually wondering, which is, what is our current level of demand for water and what is the supply of water that we have? And let me tell you the background to this, because we heard last few months there was a lot of concern whether the water supply will also get affected due to some of the other shortages. I mean, this was common knowledge, everyone was worried and talking about it. So from a personal scale as well as from a business perspective, what is the demand for water and what is the supply of water in Sri Lanka? Because basics of economics is demand and supply. Let's start with that.
Well, Tarindu, when we talk of water, demand for water, it comes from different dimensions, different directions. You need water for agriculture. You need water for commercial activities. You need water for hydropower. Here, I'm here today to discuss about water for human consumption and human activities.
For sure.
The demand for water for human consumption and human activity will differ from country to country. And then the demand for pipe-borne water. Here we are talking of pipe-borne water supplied by us for human consumption.
Correct.
Will to a great extent will depend on the geography and the climate of a country. One cannot talk about demand for pipe-borne water without considering the availability of fresh water for human consumption activities.
Correct.
It has been estimated that around 2,200 cubic meters of fresh water is required for a person for consumption as well as for other activities annually. That is in general. In general, for not only drinking, for all his human activities, they need that much of water per person. And all the products and processes involved in human activities will leave a what you call a water footprint. How much of water you abstract from the nature
Correct.
for process or product. Now, for example, this A4 paper that you have in hand will need 10 liters.
10 liters.
10 liters.
For
That
one
is 10
A4
bottles.
paper.
One paper will consume 10 liters and abstract from the nature.
Wow.
And if I am going to offer you a nice cup of coffee, okay, that will consume 150 liters of fresh water. 150.
That is
you
the
need
coffee cultivation and
all the cultivation and the whole the production, all that goes. So that's a magnitude of water that we abstract from the nature. So
Mr. Wijetunga, from what you are saying so far, all I can say is that I as an individual have been thoroughly underestimating the amount of water that I am consuming.
So, yeah, you are right. So, if you have to have a very good idea of the water footprint, how much you abstract water, and to ensure the future water security of the planet. If you are not conscious of this concept, okay, when you touch a piece of paper, when you have a cup of tea, your clothing, everything consumes a huge amount of, it leaves a huge amount of water footprint. So, we have as a nation try to be conscious of reducing this water footprint. However, then on the other side, availability of fresh water for human consumption limited and dwindling rapidly. Everybody knows about it. Okay,
Correct.
and if you are not conscious of this aspect, and if you are not mindful of this concern, next global economic downturn or recession will be triggered off by the water stress. Water stress, what you call the water stress, that is a situation where you just mentioned about how the Cape Town, okay, how they face that situation. Imagine that situation continues for a long period of time, a year. Now we are experiencing the effects and impacts of energy stress.
Correct.
We are impacting the power, electricity, we are experiencing that. Imagine the impact, okay, of water stress, and everything emerges out of water. So, if we are not conscious of this, we are going to get really hit very badly.
Understood.
And next, okay, water stress situation will lead to the next global economic catastrophe. We have to learn from our bitter experience and take all measures to avoid water stress situation at all costs.
Understood. That's a very valid point that you made, Mr. Wijetunga. With regard to the Sri Lankan situation, I just want your thoughts. Are there parts of Sri Lanka also which are facing water stress? Just a concern, because various reports have shown that sometimes 8 out of the 25 districts of the country are facing issues of water stress. What are your thoughts on that?
Now, still in Sri Lanka, we have a very particular situation. We are proud of this annual rainfall of over 2,200 millimeters of rainfall annually. But the issue here is the retention of water. And you touched on great King Parakram Bahu, how important for us to retain the water. Okay, retain the water. The retention, almost 60% of the water gets washed off to the sea, because of the retention issue.
Understood.
So, that is where we have the ample amount of rainfall, but because of the retention issue, we have a serious issue of water.
Let's talk about the government policy, because I believe this is a matter of water security, just like energy security and national security. Water security also, I believe, is a part of a nation's security. And what is the current government policy and direction towards the water supply and drainage facilities in Sri Lanka?
We as a organization, as a
entity of the
government, we have been working very hardly, very strongly to develop these policies for drinking water, a policy for sanitation and wastewater, and policy for rural water. So, we are much ahead of most of the Asian countries in that aspect. And we have our policies where we have elaborated on what is the investment aspect, the coverage aspects, treatment aspects, and operational aspect, cost recovery aspect, disaster preparedness, research and development, whole gamut of things we have developed. So, we as far as the policy is concerned and the strategies are concerned for water supply as well as for sewerage, we have covered that area. We were one of the few countries to achieve in Asian region, of course, the Millennium Development Goals, and we are very well on course to achieve the sustainable development goal of providing safe access to drinking water for all the people by 2030. So, we are well on course.
Understood. Because that means even right now there are some parties who still depend on the groundwater for their consumption, but as you said, by 2030, good quality drinking water, pipe-borne water, if I'm not mistaken, that's what you're saying, will be made available.
Yeah, now it's like this. Now, for a country like ours, provision of pipe-borne water, is one of the best technology or best service provision that we can think of. Now, as at now, 50% of the people of this country, okay, we are serving as a water board. We are serving 50% of people. They get the pipe-borne water, and around 10% is served through local authorities and community-based organizations. They cover that, and around 35% still depend on point sources, protected dug wells, tube wells. You might have seen when you are going around these,
especially out of
Colombo. So, we have the mix of technologies and
like
service provision.
Water
supply mix. So, what we are trying to do is to improve. So, we are going to improve the coverage of pipe-borne water dedicated for towns, cities and heavily built up areas, and local authorities will look after, and sometimes we provide in bulk, okay, then they do the distribution. And point sources also we are monitoring them, managing them, getting their treatment process improved in this thing. So, it's a balance of everything, okay, balance of mixed bag, I would say, mixed bag.
Some fantastic insights from you, Mr. Wijetunga, on that. Let's talk about the current drastic weather condition. Now, yes, these days we are experiencing some rain, but I think you and I both can agree that we have not been having the consistent weather patterns for some time. We have experienced sometimes prolonged droughts, and in fact, when you and I were in school, we learned even in some of the Sinhala literature about how Sri Lanka was described as a place where there is the rain happening at the right time. Kalata velawata nisi vessala bena desha, as we used to learn it. But that nation is not really there anymore. We are experiencing, due to various global weather pattern changes, climate changes, we are experiencing so much of drought, so much of not so favorable weather patterns and conditions. My question to you is, the droughts, and then we do have the torrential rain, the floods, in fact, that we experience. What challenges do those drastic weather pattern changes create for your organization when it comes to supplying the water to the public of this country?
Yeah, very pertinent question, Tharindu. You must not be knowing that in 2018, Sri Lanka has been listed as one of the, I think, ranked 8th on the countries that get mostly affected by climate change. And 2019 also we were on the top 5 countries that. So, it's you can see the whole when you compare with other countries, we were in a very vulnerable area, okay, vulnerable situation, and you feel the effects also. You have feel the effects, sudden rains, prolonged droughts, flash floods, and all sorts of things happening. Now, for us, as the water board, who is the organization committed and mandated to provide water,
to make sure that when we turn on the taps that the water will flow.
We can't have excuses, no. Correct. So, we have to have that safe. We have committed to provide safe access to safe drinking water. Okay, so when you open the tap, you should get the high quality, good quality water in your tap. So, now one thing is the droughts. Okay, with the droughts, we have 2 issues. One issue is the quantity, okay, and that again will impact on the quality also. As the quantity goes down, then this algae issue, we face with the algae issue. When it goes down because of concentration and algae, you get an algae bloom. And treatment process, all our treatment processes are geared to handle algae. So, then we get into that problem. Then again, the catchments, okay, catchments, and we have this, you might have noticed, the solid waste disposal is not very well managed in our country, okay.
We can agree. Both of us can agree on that.
So, when it suddenly rain, okay, when it suddenly get the rain, and if you say sudden torrential flows, okay, or what do you call this flash flood situation, suddenly it rains 100 or 200 millimeters, all that solid waste, leachate, all that waste get washed off, and that then because of this deforestation and haphazard development, the water won't get absorbed, and it get washed off with all the muck and dirt and all that, and get washed down to the water sources that we depend on, catchment areas. Then our treatment processes can't handle that much of solid, like suspended solid, what you call, and the high turbidity. Lot of mud in, you can see that, like milk tea, okay, you see that that much of this thing. So this is the issue. So algae, solid waste, getting solid waste, leachate getting mixed up with this thing. So treatment processes also. So far, we have been very, very conscious about this. We have managed it, but we cannot, because it takes a lot of investment to make this treatment. You can't develop water treatment plants for the high-end, most difficult type of treatment. At the average, you can, there's a cost, and the operations also will get this thing.
Understood.
So this is the situation.
Some very valid thoughts from you on that. I'm looking forward to some of your further insight after this short break, Mr. Wijetunga. Stay tuned. We will be back after this short break. This is Bisnomics.
AMW එකෙන් අපි ඕන වාහනයක් ගන්නවා.
පොඩ්ඩක් ඉන්න AMW විකුණු පාන විතරක්ම වෙන්නේ නැති ගන්නේ.
ඕන වාහනයක් ගන්නවා.
පරණ වාහනයක්
ගන්නවා.
අම්බාලකට දුවපු වාහනයක් නම්
මයිලේජ් ජෙනුයින් නම් ගන්නවා.
පාර්ට්ස් එක හොයාගන්න අමාරු කාර් එකක්.
අවුලක් නැහැ ගන්නවා.
සෑහෙන්න මොඩිෆයි කරපු එකක්.
කිසි ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ.
සල්ලි ගන්න විකුණනකන් ඉන්න වෙන්නේ.
පැය 3ෙන් සල්ලි දෙනවා.
එතකොට ලීසින් කරලා තිබුණොත්
ලීස් එක සෙටල් කරලා අපි ගන්නවා.
කොකටත් එක ෂුවර් කරගන්න හැබැයි.
AMW වෙතින් ඕනෑම වාහනයක් කරදරයක් නැතුව විකුණ ගන්න. අපෙන් නොගත්තත් අපි ගන්නවා.
Welcome back to Bisnomics, your weekend's most profitable and insightful 60 minutes. I'm Thilina Amarasekara. Our focus today is on the water security of Sri Lanka. What do you need to know about our water supply, and what goes on behind the scene as you turn on your tap and the water begins to flow? What's all that activity happening? And we are in conversation with the General Manager of the National Water Supply and Drainage Board, Mr. Thilina Wijetunga. Mr. Wijetunga, let's talk about the water pollution problem. Now, we hear so many different aspects with regard to the chronic kidney disease in some of the cities like Anuradhapura, and then there are other waterborne diseases that spread as well. What exactly is the root cause to all of this?
Well, the pollution, okay, as an organization, we first have to control and mitigate the pollution. We have to start from the upstream catchment and go up to the consumer. So we have the value chain from starting from upstream water source, treatment plant, distribution, and the consumer. So what we have adopted here is, technology what we adopted is what we call water safety planning. We have around 340 water treatment plants. For all of these water treatment plants
around the
country, some are massive treatment plants. We get one in Ambatale and Biyagama, and this Khandana plant in Bulat Singhal area for supplying the southern part of Colombo up to Moratuwa, Kasbah, those areas. So we have massive, and then we have for rural areas we have very moderate type, mediocre type treatment. For all these treatment, this thing we have, we are practicing what we call water safety planning. That is to introduce controls for catchment protection and catchment preservation, treatment plant management to ensure the quality, and the downstream network. The upstream, we have to work with the stakeholders, provincial council, local authorities to manage that. So we have auditing, we have controls, and we are getting all these people engaged. Treatment plant is our business. Okay, so then we have annual auditing to ensure that quality is maintained. And downstream distribution networks, we have to ensure that it won't get contaminated up to the point of people. So we have to ensure this thing. We have put that in place. Then apart from that, to prevent pollution, we have brought in legislation, we have got industrial siting policies in place, with some industries discharge hazardous pollutants, okay, which cannot be treated with conventional treatment. We can treat anything, but it will cost a lot. So this thing, and then we have not beyond that, we have tree planting programs for catchment preservations, and in fact, we have gone to the extent of amending our board act to prevent upstream pollution, to give strength to our act to regulate and go and prevent external parties.
Understood.
So we have done all sorts of things. But having said that, okay, this but you touched on chronic kidney disease.
Correct.
And waterborne diseases. For waterborne diseases, we are in a very good shape. Okay, basically you talk of diarrhea and cholera. Okay, I will assure you, our water is 99.9%. Okay, is free from pathogens that will give you cholera. This thing. So
which is, I believe, a luxury for the people, because not every country can claim that.
Yeah, even this is why we are ranked one of the best in Southeast Asian region. I think we are much higher above even India, for that matter. And the cholera, and this is not going to be even during the tsunami. All our plants and distribution networks got washed off. Immediately we recovered from that this thing, and we never had one single case of cholera. And then during the COVID pandemic also, so this issue of cholera and that waterborne diseases is not so much of a problem. But when you talk about chronic kidney issue, now this chronic kidney issue is we can't directly relate that to pipe-borne water. It's a hypothesis. They are still studying that. In fact, we have a research institute now in Peradeniya, and dedicated. We have got a grant from government of China, and we are doing research. Still, it's not established the link between this thing very well established. But it's a hypothesis. But there's a fact that if you give safe access to water, the degree of getting
the chronic
kidney disease is marginal, becomes marginal. So we are, that's what it says, CKDU, on unknown etiology. Okay, U is for unknown etiology. So we are providing water, safe drinking water through major programs. We have one program going on in Anuradhapura. These are the areas where Anuradhapura, JICA helped us to do a massive program to help them. And then people in Anuradhapura, and we have another major program we launched in northwestern province, Daduru area. Polpithigam area is heavily affected, so that area also we have done, and we are helping the government together with our ministry and other stakeholders to install this what do you call RO plants. We have seen the small scale plants to remove the dissolved metals. Okay, then we get rid of that. It helps. So we have all these methodologies and approaches to handle this issue.
That's a very good insight from you, Mr. Wijetunga. Let's get to the matter of the cost of maintaining the water supply facilities and the drainage facilities of Sri Lanka, because the cost, the finances of public sector organizations are being scrutinized heavily, because like it or not, we do see a lot of public sector organizations not doing that great when it comes to finances. It's a common problem that we hear a lot of people speaking of. what is the cost of managing and maintaining all these water supplies for the country, and what are the main cost factors that you have to incur in providing these safe water facilities to Sri Lanka?
Yeah, thank you very much, Harindu, for asking this question. Okay. Now, I will take this opportunity to highlight the complexity of building a water infrastructure. Okay. Water infrastructure, we have to build the intakes in rivers, in streams. It's very complicated when you are doing construction. We have to face floods and all that. Then transmission of huge lanes, huge transmission pipes to the treatment plant. The treatment works itself is a very complex, very complicated work. And the distribution network, okay, it's a very intricate, very complex network going from along the streets, along the by roads and all that. And when it gets more complicated when we go into a hilly terrain. If it's a flat terrain, remember, Tharindu, we are supplying or transporting a bulk. Now we talk of 1 unit, no, for 1 unit for which you are paying around 50 rupees, okay, 50 rupees, we cost us 50 rupees, even sometimes the first block you get even lesser than that. I will come to that later. That is 1 ton of water. So for us to provide 30 cubic meters, that is 30 tons of water brought from the river, transmitted, treated and elevated up to the high elevated areas, and we have to maintain the pressure at the end, what we call the residual pressure. About at least we have to keep about 5-6 meters of pressure, so that when you open the tap, it flows freely.
Correct.
So this is a mammoth task. Okay, laying of pipes. Okay, you dig a road. Okay, it's not like I'm not making any comparisons.
Yes.
We are not transmitting a wave. We are not transmitting electrons. We are not transmitting data.
Correct.
It's just a huge bulk of water.
Physical mass.
Physical mass we are supplying. And when you open the tap, so this, and we have to supply it under pressure. Okay, and we have to depend on so many external factors. We touched on that with the pollutants coming in, flash floods, the turbidity of water, all that complicated will have a drastic impact on treatment process and cost.
And I believe the security aspect also comes into the picture, because we see some of the more recent terrorism attacks, even worldwide, globally. They are attacking the water infrastructure and they are trying to add various poisonous matters to that. So I believe even the security aspect has to be considered by you all.
Yes, it's a, as I said, my first session, okay, we touched on water security. If you don't look after your water supply, that will be worse than the energy crisis, okay, because it's a fundamental, it's a bottom line, the fundamental thing, okay. So how much? So far so good we have managed it here in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
So this is the cost of infrastructure, okay. Yes. Building infrastructure is very costly. When it comes to sewerage, pipe sewerage, even it's worse. So sewerage and this thing, building the infrastructure itself is so complicated. And the maintenance, maintaining this thing, we should not allow pipes to leak, pipes to break, okay. And this is a huge bulk of water push in when you we get all sudden pressures, pipe bursts, yes. All that also happens. So maintaining loss of water, okay, yes. We call non-revenue water, loss of water, okay, for common purpose, and it's loss of water. Yeah. You can't minimize loss of water. There's a bare minimum world standard. We have this thing, so we have to bring it down, okay. So maintaining, transporting, and we have to the quality, and then yes. We are dealing with pathogens and bacteria living in water. We have to have always maintain the quality, service levels. When you open, how much like of frustration you will have if you open the tap, and one day if you open the tap and no water, you will go to town, no? Yeah. So this is a very complex thing. I think I'm not comparing with anybody, but it is one of the most complicated, difficult utility service that we provide.
So when you compare that cost and the revenue, is the National Water Supply and Drainage Board able to self-sustain their operations based on their own revenues?
We have not, for the last 12 years, have adjusted our water tariff.
For the last 12 years.
12 years, okay, when the all input prices, we need power, we need chemicals, we need labor, of course the capital investment is a part of it, we have never touched that. So, we have maintained it without it. So,
Which is a great relief for the public.
yeah, we are always conscious of providing this relief for the public and ensure the social welfare of the public. But having said that, okay, I would like to size up now. 50 generally general public will pay 15 for 15 units. Okay, our average bill is about 300 rupees. Monthly you have to pay 300 rupees. This is provision of 15 tons of water to your doorstep. And when you compare it with bottled water, okay, bottled water, when you compare it with bottled water, for this amount of bottled water, you have to pay about 60,000 or 70,000 rupees.
Wow.
So, we are providing water now. Bottled water you can't, it's just for drinking.
Yes.
So, this is
Multi-purpose.
yeah, comparing 1 liter of water we are providing up to 15%. After we have block tariff. After 15, it gets increased and
rightly so, basic economics. Yes.
So, 15 units, 15 cubic meters is a lifeline quantity of water required by people, set by that's a standard set by the United Nations. So, we are within that, and our tariff. 90% domestic consumers are subsidized, 95%. Okay, because they are below 35.
Yes.
And up to 30 cubic meters, consumers pay less than production cost. Okay. Our production cost is 45 rupees per cubic meter. They pay very much less, about 2-3 rupees. Our tariff structure does not only cater for Samurdhi, subsidy will not cater for Samurdhi, it is a general thing. You are also getting benefit out of it. Okay? And when we need, we have to provide 140 liters per day, that is our standard for human consumption. And for the drinking and cooking purposes, it is around 40 liters. So, you could roughly say over 100 liters per day is being used, or I would say abused, or wasted for other purposes, gardening, watering, washing, car washing, other purposes, all that purposes. This is a good quality treated water which we transport with so much of effort for that. So, this disparity is going to have an impact.
What about on the income side?
Income side, we need to, now we have a service charge as well, okay. For provision of service, yes, we have a very minimal charge, okay, 250 rupees per connection, we have very minimal service charge. So, there is a disparity. The high-end consumers, okay, which is about 10%, okay, is cross-subsidizing the low-end domestic consumers.
Understood.
And the other side, the industrial and commercial segments are subsidizing this segment.
Correct.
So, it is a kind of what you call Pareto discrepancy, 80-20 scenario. We have to be mindful of ensuring social welfare while ensuring the long-term sustainability of the utility as well.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
So, we should not jeopardize the sustainability of utility which has been providing the services for such a long time during tsunami, during COVID pandemic, now even during this troubled times.
Sure. So, what you mean to say is that overall it is is it like at a point of break even?
Now we have come to a break even point. Okay?
Which is good news, because a public sector organization having that situation is good.
And then sometimes this cross subsidy, okay, would lead to negative economic spin-offs also, okay, because if you stifle the commercial sector by trying to abstract more from there, this could have a negative economic spin-offs also. So, we have to strike a balance in that.
Some very valid thoughts there.
How much of subsidy should be given to domestic sector?
Yes.
How much should be abstracted from the commercial and industrial sector, and high-end consumption should be. So we are now, we have to contemplate and address all these issues when we are sitting here.
Some very good thoughts there, Mr. Wijetunga. We are going to come back to you on more details on that. Stay tuned. We will be back after this short break. This is Bisnomics.
අංකල් සැම්සන් එයාගේ කාරක විකුණන්න තීරණය කළා. ඇඩ් එක දැම්ම විතරයි. සට ගාලා කට්ටිය එන්න ගත්තා. හැබැයි
මගේ අම්මෝ තව ලක්ෂ දෙකක් අඩුවෙන් කරමුද?
ඕපන් පේපර්ස් කරමු.
මට ඔය හිරේ විලංගු වෙන වැඩ කරන්න නම් බෑ.
මේක හොඳ ගානකට විකුණලා දෙන්න. හැබැයි මීටරේ නම් පොඩ්ඩක් කරකවන්න වෙයි.
ඇයි ඉතින් බොරු කරලා විකුණන්නේ? ජෙනුයින් මයිලේජ් එකයි සර්විස් රෙකෝඩ් ඔක්කොමයි තියෙනවනේ.
අංකල් සැම්සන්ට වාහන විකුණන එක එපා වුණා. AMW වෙතින් ඕනෑම වාහනයක් කරදරයක් නැතුව විකුණ ගන්න. අපෙන් නොගත්තත් අපි ගන්නවා.
Welcome back to Bisnomics, your weekend's most profitable and insightful 60 minutes. I'm Thilina. Our focus today is on the water security of Sri Lanka. How secure is our water supply and what are the challenges that are ahead? And we are in conversation with Mr. Thilina Wijetunga. Mr. Wijetunga, let's talk about the impact of the pandemic, because we saw the pandemic would have definitely have had an impact on the work of your institution. To begin with, your institution technically was an organization where people come to work and carry out the work, and now the pandemic meant we can't always travel about, number one. Number two, with almost the entire country being at home for months, I'm pretty sure that that led to an increase in the consumption as well, a sudden spike in demand. Tell us about your experience. How interesting and challenging was that time?
Yeah, your word interesting is the word, okay? It was a challenging and this thing for which we stood up as an organization. And I would say, most importantly, our service, the provision of potable water was the key thing to manage the pandemic, okay? Without water, hand washing, getting rid of food preparation, everything depends on. That's what I say, how important it is, how important it is to ensure the water security, okay? In a pandemic, the bottom line is water, okay? And we as an organization had to provide this water for people to fight the pandemic, okay? But we stood up to that.
To begin with, they always said, wash your hands more now. That itself is water consumption.
Water, okay? It's easily said than done. Okay, you say wash, and we had to provide water, good water at your doorstep to this thing.
But kudos on a job well done to you and the team on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, I would, the most important thing is the resilience of our organization. Okay, we have managed tsunami, droughts, and earthslides very well. We have that culture inbuilt to our organization. All my hats off to our employees, starting from the small person who is working in the pits and giving connections to operators, to treatment plant operators. All of them took it to their heart. For example, when we had this long holiday, we put a contingency plan in place. Okay, how to bring chemicals, who and who is on the roster, and how to get the power supply, diesel supply, all that we have very good. So, we were able to manage the pandemic situation. Firstly, hats off to dedication and the commitment of our staff, and then meticulous planning. Okay?
Understood.
Yeah.
And what about the impact on recoveries? For example, getting people to pay the water bills that are due to be paid. How challenging was that? Because people had income problems and issues. What was the impact of that, Mr. Wijetunga?
Yeah, generally the people had been very cooperative. In fact, I myself, okay, as a general manager, I myself went from house to house to see, because that was a time where we could not have much this thing. So, I went house to house with meter readers to see how they responded. It's fabulous. They were that was a worst time. That was in during the first wave. Okay,
correct.
We know what was what hit us at that time. So even at that time, they wanted to go to the, whenever they opened, the people had the dedication. People, general public has never let us down. okay, they had the respect and probably the way that they think they value our service. Okay, so we had never had a major problem.
That's very
Yeah.
encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
Mr. Wijetunga,
And maybe to a certain degree, it's not a huge bill compared to other service
Other
bills you have to pay.
utilities,
So
yes.
that's something that people are as
more like the low-hanging fruit which you can
yeah,
pay and settle off.
yeah, something like that.
Understood. Mr. Wijetunga, let's address the elephant in the room, the fuel shortage. Because when we were talking about the lack of fuel, the lack of diesel, etc., we heard that even our water supply might be at risk, because I believe for certain operations of the water board also you need to have the generators running, you need to have this fuel supply. How much of risk are we facing? Is our water supply at risk due to the current fuel shortage the country is facing?
In that regard, I would first thank our other organization, Ceylon Electricity Board. They had been very helpful to us. In fact, I was in touch with the general manager, and my deputy general managers they were in touch with deputy general manager in the regions, and they were very cooperative. And for our major treatment plants, Ceylon Electricity Board provides us with a dedicated power supply. So, for instance, for Ambatale, we get 2 lines from Sapugaskanda, and Kolonnawa, we have 2 lines coming from there. So, it's even with during the power cuts, we have power supply to our major plants. And we have, for most of the plants, not all the plants, we have generators, standby generators also. So, we as a team, okay, with the cooperation of Ceylon Electricity Board, we manage so far, so good, I would say. Okay. Then again, even at the regional, the managers level, even the power cuts were slightly rescheduled so that we can do our pumping, and we're very cooperative. Okay, so we manage so far, and then
it's great to hear 2 government organizations working in such collaboration.
Of course, that's what they are very. We work like brothers in arms. Then the storage. I would take this opportunity, the consumers who are listening, that for them also to have their own storage. Okay, it's storage now. If you have your own storage, then again that will give us some breathing space and some room to play.
Correct.
Okay?
Even in case of an emergency.
So it's time that we are thinking about this. It's very difficult and very costly, as you said, for us to have that much of storage. Now, we are supposed to have, if the country, even the developed countries, okay, even the developed countries, they don't have this 100 or 50% storage. It's a very costly affair. So, people themselves should now, with this current situation, think about putting their, have a bare minimum need of storage at home. Yeah.
Understood. And this is a common complaint that the Electricity Board always makes about other government organizations. And I'm being very blunt here. I'm sorry if I'm putting you into trouble with this question, Mr. Wijetunga, but I thought I will ask this. We hear the Electricity Board and even sometimes the authority providing fuel, the petroleum, they always say that other public sector organizations are not paying their due bills on time, which creates further complications for them. With regard to the NWSDB, the water board, are we in a position to say that you all are settling your dues on time to the Electricity Board? That helps them to provide the electricity properly and continuously?
So, we for our power consumption,
correct,
mostly which comes from Electricity Board, we have no dues.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we have no dues, and we
what
pay
excellent
on time.
Statement to hear.
Yeah. And for procurement or purchase of fuel, for that matter diesel and petrol, we have to pay upfront. You know,
absolutely.
We are not buying huge quantities during this trouble times. Only we had to get the bulk for generators and all. So we have been, I think, whether it's been methodical, you can call it been methodical or systematic, that we have managed the system without getting into trouble, I would say.
Fantastic. On a final note, technology. Now, technology is having an impact on various aspects and facets of any utility supply. And you being an engineer yourself, I'm quite sure that you're also aware of the importance of adapting new technology. Mr. Wijetunga, on a final note, in terms of how well have our water supply and drainage facilities evolved along the time with technology, and how do you use technology to connect with the customers better? What is in play and what is in store for us? Would you like to share that?
Yeah. Now, recently Asian Development Bank launched a coffee book. There we were ranked, the National Water Supply and Drainage Board of the country of Sri Lanka was ranked one of the best organization providing quality water. Okay? They were one of in the Asian region. And our one thing is, we are as engineers and professionals in the organization, we are ready to embrace new technology. We are open to any technology. We are not closed people. We are open, and we are networking with outside world. And we have a very good exposure with foreign contractors, and one of the best two largest water contractors in the world had they have built some plants here. So we had a golden opportunity of getting that experience from them. And now our engineers, okay, in the water board have can do any design, and they have come to a stage where we can even do overseas consultancies. We have come to that stage.
Fantastic.
So provision of maintaining from we started doing the slow sand filtration and plain sedimentation, that is simple treatment process, and we are evolved to now membrane technology to remove this membrane technology, RO technology. Now we are building a plant in Jaffna, the first ever desalination plant in Jaffna. So the whole the spectrum of treatment, our engineers have the knowledge, we have the exposure, we have the experience, and as for the project management also, we can manage any sizable project, we have the experience. So technology wise, and not only there, now we have opened up for consumer we are looking at the consumer satisfaction and consumer grievance management.
It's more of a market orientation.
Market orientation. We have moved from purely technical orientation to now our vision is to be the best service provider in the country, or that's our vision.
Understood.
So we have now moved into the area where we now have a call center. We have online payment gateway have been built in, and people don't have to go to for the connections. They can do online. The complaints handling, we have do the IT mechanisms, and even the attitude change, cultural changing of people's approach to handling grievances, all that had been explored. So we finally want to treat the consumer as the king.
Understood.
That's my.
What a wonderful vision to hear from a general manager of a public sector organization. Mr. Wijetunga, it was an absolute pleasure hosting you for the show today, and it's great to hear the vision, the direction of you towards the water board, of course, together with your team as well. And what I can say is, at the end, in conclusion, that regardless of the situation of the other utilities, it's a great feeling to know that the water security of Sri Lanka definitely seems to be in safe and strong hands, and I think that's one big relief for me and for the viewers of this show, going to have a good night's sleep tonight. Thank you very much for what you're doing and what your organization is doing, and we wish you good luck to keep up with the good work. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Tarandu, for giving this opportunity.
The water security of Sri Lanka. This was the focus of our discussion today in Bisnomics, and I'm quite sure that with the insight you obtain, you are aware of what goes behind the scene, what goes on, the investments required, and most importantly, the challenges that we face and the way forward. We are all blessed with a safe and secure water supply in this nation. And let's do our part as citizens. We make sure that we don't waste the water, that we utilize it for the right purposes, because at the end of the day, it takes a lot of effort from citizens too to assist the National Water Supply and Drainage Board to make sure that the water supplies are maintained in a sustainable manner. I'm Thilina, and no matter what business you may be in, have a profitable week ahead. I'll see you with the next episode. This is Bisnomics.